The colony ship BOs shuddered violently as it broke through the atmosphere of an uncharted planet. Sparks flew across the control room, and alarms blared in chaotic bursts. Kale tightened his grip on the console, his knuckles white with tension. He wasn't a hero, not like Commander Voss or Dr. Ira, but he knew machines better than anyone else on board. Still, even his expertise couldn't save them from whatever cosmic storm had torn their vessel apart. When the shaking finally stopped, silence fell over the survivors. It was heavy, suffocating. Outside the cracked viewport, they saw nothing but endless fields of strange, glowing plants that pulsed faintly, as if alive. The air smelled metallic, tinged with something sharp and unfamiliar. Kale exhaled slowly, trying to steady himself. They were alive. For now. But survival wouldn't come easy. "We need to assess the damage," Commander Voss barked, already slipping into leadership mode. His voice carried authority, though there was no mistaking the edge of panic beneath it. "Split into teams. Find water, shelter, anything useful." Kale stayed quiet, letting others take charge for once. He preferred working alone anyway, tinkering with broken parts instead of dealing with people. As the group dispersed, he wandered toward the wreckage at the edge of the crash site. Twisted metal lay scattered everywhere, some pieces still smoldering. It looked hopeless. Then, movement caught his eye. At first, he thought it was just another trick of the light. These alien plants seemed to shift when you weren't looking directly at them. But this time, it was different. Something massive loomed on the horizon, cutting through the haze like a blade. A ship, sleek and black, descended silently without so much as a hum. Its surface shimmered like liquid obsidian, reflecting the eerie glow of the surrounding vegetation. Fear rippled through the survivors as the ship touched down. No one spoke, no one moved. Even Voss froze mid-step, his hand hovering near the holster of his sidearm. From the belly of the craft emerged a figure cloaked in silver armor that gleamed brighter than the stars above. She, yes, it was definitely a she, stepped forward with grace and power, commanding attention without effort. Her face was hidden behind a reflective visor, but her presence alone felt overwhelming. Every step she took radiated authority, yet there was something else too, danger. Her piercing gaze swept across the crowd, lingering briefly on each person before settling on Kale. For reasons he couldn't explain, his breath hitched. Why was she staring at him? Without warning, she raised a slender arm and pointed straight at him. The gesture sent chills down his spine. Then, using a voice that echoed not just in ears but in minds, she spoke. "You. Come." Panic erupted among the survivors. Some shouted protests, while others whispered prayers under their breath. Kale stood frozen, unsure what to do. This woman, this alien princess, was clearly feared by all who knew her. So why had she chosen him? What could she possibly want? Before anyone could stop him or talk him out of it, he stepped forward. As he approached, a shimmering tent-like structure materialized beside the ship, hovering inches off the ground. Its translucent walls glowed faintly, revealing intricate patterns that shifted constantly. The princess gestured again, wordlessly inviting him inside. Kale hesitated, glancing back at the terrified faces of his fellow survivors. "Don't go," someone whispered hoarsely. "She'll kill you." But deep down, Kale knew he didn't have a choice. Whatever awaited him inside that tent, it was bigger than fear, bigger than survival. And maybe, just maybe, it was exactly where he was meant to be. In the days that followed the clash, an uneasy truce settled over the camp. The survivors were divided. Some saw Kal's actions as a turning point, proof that cooperation with Zurvale and her people could lead to mutual survival. Others remained skeptical, clinging to their mistrust like a shield. Commander Voss and his followers kept their distance, plotting in secret but no longer openly hostile. For now, at least, the fighting had stopped. Kale became a bridge between the two groups, shuttling back and forth between the humans and the aliens. With Ziravel's guidance, he helped organize joint efforts to repair the damaged colony ship. Human ingenuity combined with alien technology created something neither species could have achieved alone. Broken panels were replaced with shimmering crystalline material, and engines hummed with newfound energy. Progress was slow, but it was progress nonetheless. Despite the forward momentum, tensions lingered. Many humans still viewed the aliens with suspicion, whispering about hidden agendas and ulterior motives. Even among Ziravel's own court, dissent simmered. Some of her advisors questioned her decision to trust Kel, and by extension, humanity. They argued that mercy would only invite betrayal, echoing fears rooted in centuries of conflict. But Kel refused to let doubt consume him. Each day, he worked tirelessly alongside both species, proving through action what words alone could not. Slowly, barriers began to crumble. Shared meals led to hesitant conversations, which grew into genuine exchanges of knowledge and culture. Holographic projections of Earth's blue skies and oceans fascinated the aliens, while stories of Ziravel's ancestors' psychic achievements left the humans awestruck. Bonds formed where none had existed before. During quieter moments, Kel found himself drawn to Ziravel. Their relationship evolved beyond mere necessity. They shared long talks under the glowing canopy of the tent, discussing everything from their respective histories to personal dreams. She spoke of her loneliness as a ruler, burdened by the weight of leadership. He confessed his struggles with self-doubt, admitting how much he'd always preferred machines to people. "You are more than you believe yourself to be," she told him one evening, her voice soft yet firm. "Your courage inspires others, even me." Her vulnerability surprised him. Beneath her armor of authority lay someone who yearned for connection, just like everyone else. In those moments, Kel felt closer to her than ever, not as a pawn in her plans, but as an equal. Yet, challenges remained. Supplies dwindled, tempers flared, and old wounds refused to heal completely. Late one night, as Kel walked through the camp, he overheard fragments of heated arguments. Some survivors accused him of abandoning them for the aliens, while others blamed Ziravel for manipulating him. It was a painful reminder that trust wasn't built overnight. It required constant effort. When he returned to the tent, Ziravel noticed the weariness etched on his face. "You cannot carry the burdens of every soul here," she said gently. "Change takes time. Patience is as vital as courage." "I know," Kel replied, sighing. "But it's hard not to feel responsible when so much depends on us." She placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch surprisingly warm despite her metallic gauntlet. "Then share the responsibility. Let others step forward too. Unity is not the work of one. It is the strength of many." Her words stayed with him as he drifted off to sleep, surrounded by the pulsating glow of the tent. Outside, the stars shone brightly, reminding him of the vastness of the universe and the fragile hope they represented. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with obstacles neither side fully understood. But for the first time since the crash, Kel allowed himself to believe that peace might be possible. All it took was trust, resilience, and the willingness to build something greater than fear. The first explosion shattered the uneasy calm of the alien night. Kel stumbled out of the tent, still weak from the procedure, his senses overloaded with the chaotic emotions swirling around him. The camp was ablaze, both literally and figuratively. Fires burned in scattered patches, ignited by makeshift explosives cobbled together from scavenged alien tech. Shouts and screams filled the air as Voss's militia clashed with Ziravel's guards, who moved with eerie precision, their weapons pulsing with energy that crackled like lightning. Kel froze for a moment, overwhelmed. He could feel it all, the fear gnawing at the survivors, the anger driving Voss's followers, the cold resolve of Ziravel's warriors. It was too much, too fast. But then he remembered her words. Courage is rarer than genetics. Summoning what little strength he had left, he pushed forward into the chaos. "Stop this," he shouted, his voice barely audible over the din. "You're killing each other for nothing." No one listened. A stray blast narrowly missed him, forcing him to dive behind a pile of wreckage. His heart pounded as he realized the futility of trying to reason with either side. Desperation surged within him, and without thinking, he reached out, not with his hands, but with his mind. To his astonishment, it worked. The ground beneath the fighters trembled slightly, enough to make them pause. Weapons faltered mid-swing, and for a brief moment, everyone turned toward Kale. Even Voss hesitated, his jaw tightening as he stared at the man he'd labeled a traitor. What are you doing?" Voss demanded, his voice tinged with unease. Kale didn't answer immediately. Instead, he focused harder, channeling the strange new abilities awakened during the extraction. He raised a hand, and a shimmering barrier formed between the two groups, glowing faintly with an ethereal light. The humans gawked in disbelief, while Ziravel's guards lowered their weapons, watching curiously. "This ends now," Kale said firmly, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him. "We're stronger together than we are apart. Killing each other won't solve anything." Voss snarled, raising his weapon again. "You think your little light show scares me. You're just her puppet." Before Voss could fire, Ziravel appeared beside Kale, her presence commanding silence. She stepped forward, her silver armor gleaming ominously in the firelight. Her piercing gaze locked onto Voss, who instinctively took a step back, but not before firing a desperate shot. Time seemed to slow. The bolt of energy streaked toward Ziravel, but instead of retaliating, she simply raised a hand. The projectile stopped inches from her chest, suspended in midair. For a moment, no one moved. Then, with a flick of her wrist, she redirected the blast harmlessly into the sky. "I could destroy you where you stand," she said coldly, her telepathic voice resonating in every mind present. "But I will not. Because Kale believes there is hope for your kind, even if you do not." Her restraint shocked even her own guards. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as some survivors began lowering their weapons, uncertainty replacing hostility. Voss, however, refused to back down. "You'll regret showing mercy," he spat, though his bravado wavered. Ziravel ignored him, turning to address the group. "Your distrust is understandable. My people have made mistakes, just as yours have. But continuing this conflict benefits no one. Together, we can rebuild what has been lost, for both our species." As her words sank in, the tension began to ease. Slowly, reluctantly, the humans dispersed, leaving Voss and a few loyalists isolated. Defeated, they retreated into the shadows, vowing revenge under their breath. Inside the tent later, Kale sat slumped against the glowing wall, trained but alive. Ziravel knelt beside him, her expression softer than usual. "You've done more than I expected," she admitted quietly. "Perhaps courage truly is the key to bridging worlds." Kale managed a weak smile. "Let's hope so, because if it isn't, we're all in trouble." Kale's heart pounded as he crossed the threshold into the hovering tent. The air inside was cool and thick, carrying a faint metallic scent, mixed with something floral. He half expected guards or weapons to appear, but instead, the space seemed almost peaceful. Strange, glowing plants lined the walls, their soft light casting shifting patterns on the translucent fabric. It felt alive, like the tent itself was breathing. The princess stood at the center, her silver armor gleaming under the ethereal glow. She removed her helmet slowly, revealing delicate features framed by sleek, obsidian black hair. Her skin shimmered faintly, as if dusted with stardust, and her eyes, those piercing, otherworldly eyes, locked onto Cal's. They weren't just looking at him. They were seeing through him. "You are afraid," she said, her voice resonating directly in his mind rather than his ears. "But fear is not weakness. It is a test." Kale swallowed hard, unsure how to respond. "Why did you bring me here?" he asked finally, his voice steadier than he expected. "What do you want from me?" She tilted her head slightly, studying him like a scientist examining an unfamiliar specimen. "You possess something rare," she replied cryptically. "Something my people have sought for centuries. But before I reveal more, you must prove yourself worthy of trust." Before Kale could ask what she meant, the ground beneath his feet shifted. The glowing plants around him began to pulse faster, their light growing brighter until it filled the entire tent. Suddenly, the world around him dissolved, replaced by a swirling void of shadow and light. He found himself standing in a barren desert, the sun blazing overhead. Sand whipped against his face, stinging his skin. In the distance, he saw figures, people he recognized. His parents, long gone, called out to him, their voices filled with warmth and love. For a moment, he forgot where he was, overwhelmed by the urge to run toward them. But then the scene changed. Now, he stood in the colony ship's engine room back on Eos, surrounded by flames. The acrid smell of burning metal choked the air. Bodies lay scattered around him, his crewmates, charred and lifeless. Among them was Commander Voss, his face frozen in a silent scream. Guilt crashed over Kale like a tidal wave. If only he'd fixed the engines faster, maybe this wouldn't have happened. "Enough," a firm voice commanded. The illusion shattered, and Kale stumbled backward, gasping for breath. He was back in the tent, sweat dripping down his temples. The princess watched him calmly, her expression unreadable. What was that?" he demanded, his voice trembling. "A glimpse of your fears," she said simply. "And your regrets. You carry burdens heavier than most. Yet despite them, you endure. That is why I chose you." Kale clenched his fists, anger bubbling beneath the surface. "Chose me for what? To play games with my mind. To torture me because you can." Her gaze softened ever so slightly, though her tone remained firm. "No, to understand you. My people do not give trust easily, human. We have been betrayed too many times. But your resilience, it intrigues me." She stepped closer, her presence both intimidating and oddly comforting. "Your DNA contains markers linked to ancient legends of my species, markers tied to abilities we once possessed but lost over time. Unlocking them may save my kingdom, or doom us all." Kale stared at her, trying to process her words. "So, what happens now?" "That depends on you," she replied. "Will you face the trials ahead, even when they seem impossible, or will you let fear dictate your path?" For a moment, Kale hesitated. This alien princess, feared by all, was asking him, a nobody engineer, to step into a role he never imagined. But deep down, he knew one thing for certain: running away wasn't an option anymore. "I'll try," he said finally, meeting her gaze. "But don't expect me to be perfect." A flicker of something, admiration, amusement, passed across her face. "Perfection is not required, only courage." And with that, the tent's lights dimmed, signaling the end of their first encounter. Little did Kale know, this was only the beginning of a journey far greater than anything he'd ever dreamed or feared. The tent's glowing walls pulsed softly, casting a warm yet mysterious light over the space. Kale sat cross-legged on the floor, his mind racing with questions. The princess, Zoyer Vale, as she had introduced herself, moved gracefully around him, occasionally brushing her fingers against the shimmering plants that lined the walls. Each touch sent ripples of color cascading through their leaves, like water disturbed by a gentle breeze. "You still doubt me," Zoyer Vale said suddenly, her voice cutting through the silence. It wasn't a question, but an observation, sharp and unyielding. Kale hesitated before responding. "How can I not? You've shown me illusions, hinted at secrets about my DNA, and expect me to just trust you." She turned to face him, her expression unreadable. For someone so powerful, she carried an air of loneliness that Kale couldn't quite ignore. "Trust is earned, human, but understanding often precedes it." She paused, then added, "Perhaps learning about me will help." With a wave of her hand, The air between them shimmered, forming a holographic projection. Images began to play out. A sprawling city made of crystalline towers, its streets bustling with beings who looked similar to Zuervale, but wore simpler attire. Children laughed, merchants called out to passers-by, and the sky above sparkled with twin suns. It was beautiful, almost utopian. "This was our home," Zuervale explained, her voice tinged with nostalgia. "Centuries ago, my people thrived. We were explorers, scholars, creators. Our psychic abilities allowed us to connect deeply with one another and our environment. Harmony ruled. But the scene shifted abruptly. Now, the city lay in ruins, its once brilliant towers reduced to jagged shards. Smoke billowed into the sky, and screams echoed faintly in the background. Alien ships descended from above, unleashing devastating weapons that tore through everything in their path. "The invaders came without warning," Zuervale continued, her tone hardening. "They sought something within us, the same genetic markers present in your DNA. These markers amplify psychic potential, granting powers beyond imagination. Powers they wanted to harness for conquest." Cale leaned forward, captivated despite himself. "What happened?" "We fought back," she replied, her gaze distant. "It was brutal. Entire generations perished. My ancestors managed to repel the invaders, but at great cost. Fear took root in our society. Trust became a luxury we could no longer afford." As the hologram faded, Zuervale knelt beside Cale, her armor gleaming faintly in the dim light. "My rule has been shaped by survival, not kindness. Every decision I make is weighed against the possibility of betrayal. Do you understand now why I must be cautious?" Cale nodded slowly, though unease lingered in his chest. "And what does this have to do with me?" Her eyes locked onto his, intense and unwavering. "You carry remnants of what we lost. Your DNA holds dormant sequences linked to those ancient abilities. If awakened, they could restore balance to my fractured kingdom, or destroy it entirely." Silence stretched between them as Cale processed her words. He felt small, insignificant compared to the weight of her history and expectations. Yet there was something else too, a flicker of curiosity, even purpose. Maybe he wasn't just a random survivor after all. "Why didn't anyone else notice this before?" he asked finally. "Why am I the only one affected?" Zuervale stood, pacing slowly. "Your uniqueness likely stems from Earth's evolutionary divergence. Humans are resilient, adaptable. Over millennia, your species developed traits latent in others. That is why you, and perhaps others like you, are key to bridging our worlds." Cale frowned, still unsure whether to believe her. But as he looked into her piercing eyes, he sensed no deception, only determination and maybe a hint of vulnerability. Before he could respond further, a low hum filled the tent. Zuervale stiffened, turning toward the entrance. Outside, voices shouted in panic. The humans were arguing again, their distrust boiling over. "We'll continue this later," she said firmly. "For now, remember this. Knowledge is power, but trust is strength. Choose wisely, Cale." As she disappeared through the tent's translucent wall, Cale was left alone with his thoughts, and the growing realization that his life would never be the same. Inside the tent, Zuervale gestured for Cale to sit on a low, glowing platform that seemed to form out of thin air. Her demeanor had shifted, from commanding and cold to something softer, almost hesitant. She knelt beside him, her silver armor reflecting the pulsating light of the bioluminescent plants around them. "We must proceed," she said quietly, her voice carrying both urgency and caution. "Time is not on our side." Cale frowned, his stomach tightening. "What exactly does proceed mean? You've hinted at my DNA being special, but I still don't understand how or why." Zuervale hesitated, as if choosing her words carefully. "Your genetic code contains dormant sequences linked to psychic abilities once common among my people. These sequences are rare in humans, but your lineage carries traces of them. Unlocking these markers could awaken untapped potential within you, and possibly within me. Her gaze locked onto his, searching for signs of hesitation or fear. But the process will not be easy. It requires extracting specific strands of your DNA and integrating them into my genome. Doing so may enhance your own abilities as well, but it comes with risks. What kind of risks? Kale asked sharply, leaning back instinctively. She didn't sugarcoat it. Pain, weakness, perhaps even permanent damage. Your body may reject the changes entirely, and if something goes wrong, she trailed off, her expression grim. It could cost you your life. Kale swallowed hard, his mind racing. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about sacrifice. He thought about the survivors outside, their mistrust and anger directed at him. If this worked, maybe he could bridge the gap between humans and aliens. Maybe he could prove Voss wrong. But if it failed, why me? He whispered finally, more to himself than to her. Why take such a risk on someone like me? Ziravel tilted her head slightly, her piercing eyes softening. Because you chose trust when others would have fled. Because you stood between me and those who sought to harm me. Courage is rarer than genetics, Kale. Her words struck a chord deep within him. He nodded slowly, resolve hardening in his chest. All right, let's do it. The procedure began immediately. 2 alien attendants entered the tent, their movements fluid and precise. They carried strange devices that hummed softly, emitting faint beams of light. One device hovered over Kale's arm, its tip glowing brighter as it scanned his veins. Another positioned itself near Ziravel's temple, connecting to her through tendrils of energy. As the extraction started, Kale gritted his teeth against the sharp sting coursing through his body. It felt like needles pricking every nerve ending, followed by waves of heat and cold that left him gasping. Through the haze of pain, he noticed Ziravel flinch too, a flicker of discomfort crossing her otherwise composed face. Whatever they were doing, it wasn't one-sided. Outside the tent, chaos brewed anew. Commander Voss rallied a group of disgruntled survivors, feeding their fears with whispers of betrayal. He's letting them experiment on him, Voss hissed during a secret meeting under the cover of night. Who knows what they're planning? We can't wait any longer. Garrett nodded eagerly, clutching a stolen piece of alien tech scavenged from earlier skirmishes. If we hit them hard enough, we can take control of their weapons, use their own tech against them. Back inside the tent, Kale barely registered the growing unrest beyond the translucent walls. His focus was consumed by the searing sensations radiating through his body, and the flashes of memories flooding his mind. Images of places he'd never seen, faces he didn't recognize, voices speaking languages he couldn't understand, all surged forward like fragments of a forgotten dream. Then, suddenly, clarity struck. A surge of energy coursed through him, sharpening his senses. For a brief moment, he saw everything. The camp, the survivors arguing, the stars above, and realized he could feel their emotions. Fear, anger, hope. Ziravel watched him intently, her expression unreadable. It has begun, she murmured, but the hardest part lies ahead. As the extraction concluded, Kale slumped forward, exhausted yet aware of the powers simmering beneath his skin. Outside, Voss and his followers prepared for battle, unaware that the war they sought to ignite might already be tipping in favor of forces far greater than themselves. The day the colony ship was finally repaired, a sense of bittersweet anticipation filled the air. The vessel stood tall and gleaming under the alien suns, its once broken hull now reinforced with crystalline alloys that shimmered like starlight. It was a testament to what humanity and Ziravel's people could achieve together, but it also marked the end of their fragile alliance. Kale stood at the edge of the camp, watching as survivors packed supplies and prepared for departure. Some approached him hesitantly, offering thanks or apologies for doubting him. Others avoided his gaze altogether, their mistrust still lingering despite everything. Among them was Commander Voss, who glared from afar but said nothing. His rebellion had been silenced, though not forgotten. Inside the tent, Zyrvale waited. She wore no armor this time, only a simple robe that shimmered faintly in the dim light. Her expression was calm, yet there was an undeniable sadness in her eyes. Kale entered quietly, his footsteps muffled by the glowing plants that lined the walls. "You've done well," she said softly, breaking the silence. "Your people are ready to leave." Kale nodded, his throat tight. "Yeah, they're ready." He hesitated, then added, "But I'm not sure I am." Zyrvale tilted her head slightly, studying him. "You've earned your place here, Kale. You've proven yourself, not just to me, but to both our peoples. Yet the choice is yours alone." He looked away, his mind racing. Returning to Earth meant safety, familiarity, a chance to start over among his own kind. But staying meant embracing something far greater, a role as a diplomat between worlds, a bridge between two species struggling to understand each other. It wasn't an easy decision, but deep down, he already knew the answer. "I can't go back," he admitted finally, meeting her gaze. "Not yet. There's too much left to do here. Too many bridges we haven't finished building." For the first time, Zyrvale smiled. A genuine, unguarded smile that transformed her entire presence. "Then stay. Help me guide my people toward trust instead of fear. Together, we can forge a future neither of us could create alone." As the hours passed, the final preparations were made. The remaining survivors boarded the ship, casting one last glance at the alien world they'd come to know. Some waved goodbye, others simply stared, their faces unreadable. Before stepping onto the ramp, Dr. Era approached Kale, her voice heavy with emotion. "You're making the right choice," she said, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Tell them about us when you get the chance." "About hope." With a nod, Kale watched as the ship ascended into the sky, leaving behind trails of light that faded into the stars. Silence fell over the landscape, broken only by the soft hum of the glowing plants around him. Back inside the tent, Zyrvale joined him, her presence comforting in its familiarity. "A new chapter begins," she said quietly. "One written not in blood or betrayal, but in courage and unity." Kale took her hand, feeling a spark of connection, not just between them, but between their worlds. Outside, the twin suns dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and violet. For the first time in months, Kale felt a sense of peace. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he faced them not as a survivor, but as someone who dared to believe in a brighter future. And as the stars twinkled above, he knew that even in the vastness of space, hope could shine through the darkest nights. The tension outside the tent was palpable, thick enough to choke on. Kale emerged cautiously, his eyes scanning the chaotic scene before him. The survivors had split into heated factions, their voices rising in anger and fear. Commander Voss stood at the center, his face red with fury as he addressed the group. "This isn't survival, it's surrender," Voss bellowed, pointing an accusatory finger toward the hovering pavilion. "Cal's been cozying up to that alien witch while we rot out here. She's using him to get inside our heads." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Some nodded vigorously, while others exchanged wary glances. Kale clenched his fists, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. He hadn't asked for any of this. Yet here he was, caught between two worlds, neither fully trusting him. "She saved us from freezing to death last night," one woman countered, her voice trembling but defiant. "Her people gave us food and medicine when we had nothing." "And what's the price?" Voss shot back, his tone venomous. "What does she want in return? We don't even know what she's doing to Kale in there." Kale stepped forward, his heart pounding. "I'm right here, you know," he said loudly, silencing the group. "If you've got something to say about me, say it to my face." Voss turned on him, his expression darkening. "You think you're some kind of hero, walking into her lair like some lapdog. You're either blind or stupid, Kale." Either way, you're putting us all in danger." The accusation stung, but Kale refused to back down. "You don't understand what's going on here," he snapped. "Zyrvale isn't our enemy. She's trying to help." "Help herself, maybe," Voss interrupted, sneering. "And you're too naive to see it." Before Kale could respond, a shout rang out from the edge of the camp. A small group of men, armed with makeshift weapons cobbled together from debris, approached the tent. They were led by Garrett, a burly mechanic who'd always resented authority, and now clearly saw Zyrvale as the ultimate oppressor. "We're not waiting around for her to finish whatever twisted experiment she's running," Garrett growled. "We're taking matters into our own hands." "No," Kale shouted, stepping between them and the tent. His voice cracked slightly, but he held his ground. "You can't just attack her. You'll start a war none of us can win." Garrett smirked, raising a jagged metal rod threateningly. "Move aside, Kale, or we'll move you ourselves." For a moment, time seemed to freeze. Kale's mind raced. He couldn't fight them, not physically, but he couldn't let them harm Zyrvale either. Then, without warning, the air around him shimmered. The glowing plants lining the tent pulsed violently, and a low hum filled the space. Zyrvale appeared suddenly, her silver armor gleaming menacingly under the alien sun. "You dare threaten my guest?" she demanded, her voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. Her presence alone silenced the would-be raiders, their bravado crumbling under her piercing gaze. One of them lunged anyway, swinging wildly with a sharpened piece of metal. In an instant, Zyrvale raised her hand, and the weapon froze midair, suspended as if held by invisible threads. The man stumbled backward, his face pale with terror. "I could kill you where you stand," Zyrvale said coldly, her words echoing in everyone's minds. "But I won't, because Kale believes in your potential for better." The tension crackled like static electricity. Slowly, the attackers lowered their weapons, shamefaced. They retreated, muttering curses under their breath. As they disappeared into the crowd, Voss lingered, glaring at Kale with undisguised hatred. "This isn't over," he spat before storming off. When the commotion died down, Zyrvale turned to Kale, her expression softening slightly. "You risked yourself for me," she observed quietly. "Why?" Kale hesitated, then shrugged. "Because I believe in what you're trying to do. And because maybe I trust you more than I should." Her lips curved into the faintest hint of a smile, a rare moment of vulnerability. "Then prepare yourself, Kale. Trust will soon demand sacrifice." As she vanished back into the tent, Kale felt the weight of her words settle over him. Whatever lay ahead, betrayal wasn't just a shadow looming, it was already among them.